Yeah, I'm going to read, I'm afraid, and then I'm going to bury within the reading a reading, so forgive me for that, and show some images. And given that it's all written down, I'll start straight off. So I'd like to offer a couple of playfully radical ways of rethinking the notion of a zone, and so of being in the zone. One involves what we refer to with unnatural ease as time. And I'll show you what I mean by that with the opening sequences of Days of Being Wild, Wong Kar-wai's classic of nostalgic future shock. The other is space, with reference to the easily demonized free zone as actualized in Dubai, which rewards more serious attention. Specifically, I'd like to take the notion of discrete free zones for things like knowledge, flowers, and international humanitarian organizations, which actually exist in Dubai, and invert that logic, or the economy of them, to conjugate them as a verb, free zoning. I'll attempt a composition of these times and spaces armed with broken down utopian esprit to focus on two examples of being in the zone, running in a zone of occupation and running in a zone of regeneration. For the sake of neatness, we'll begin above a tropical canopy in the clip I'm about to show you and end beneath one in the Elephant and Castle urban forest. So now I'm going to try and find this clip. And I might, if you forgive me, just play the whole 3 or 4 minutes rather than fiddle around and try and take a minute out.
幾多錢啊？2毫子，按樽加豆領。你叫咩名？我做咩話俾你知啊？我知你叫咩名，應該叫做叫蘇麗珍。邊個話俾你知㗎？你今晚發夢會見到我。我尋晚冇發夢見到你喎。
嘅，你都冇瞓，咁冇用，你一定會見到我。 你今日有啲唔同喎。
冇啊，有咩唔同啊？
冇。你耳仔唔紅嘅？
你究竟想點啫？
冇，想同你做朋友啫。
我點解同佢做朋友啊？
睇下我嘅錶。
點解睇住你錶啫
1分鐘啦。
夠鐘啦，講啦。
今日幾多號
？16號咯。
4月16。1960年4月16號下晝3點之前1分鐘，你同我喺埋一齊。因為你，我會記得嗰1分鐘。由而家開始，我哋就係1分鐘嘅朋友。呢個係事實嚟嘅，你追唔返嘅。因為已經過去咗。我體會咗你。
So, being in the zone here means being in a confected time zone, an intervening decontextualizing zone of 1 minute. This is a utopian gesture appropriate for our age, small, localized, in the transitive body, yet with insurgent potential. Anyone can and should do it, not only in that form, obviously, any time, any place. This applies equally to abysmally hardened military zones with liberatory effect, as well as notional free zones, both in the actual desert as Dubai expands ever further from the old Creek port, and in London's newly condensed future as it heads for 10 million people and peak climate change. So let's focus on 2 examples of being in the zone in this way, referencing occupation and then regeneration, both of which zones I happen to have regularly run in, both of which zones are prey to the range of things that Michel Serres means when he writes that the hard does not last, only the soft lasts. The former zone of occupation is far from a joke, however, and yet what is hard there, concrete walls, military brutality, racially exclusive laws, aerial bombardment of besieged refugees, and ironclad impunity, is ultimately prey to the soft, the human, witness, words, civility, ethics, truth, reconciliation. Regeneration is serious in its impacts too, but more responsive to my notion of free zoning and the composing of hard and soft zones across an existing city like London. While the term regeneration is now a meaningless smokescreen, free zoning with toughly conceived zones like wild, profit-free, or performance art zones, pedestrian poetry or forest zones, even a soft anarchist zone, weird as that thought is, can overlap softly with the existent to form inclusive ethical compacts. I'd like to read some short extracts from my recent book, In Ramallah Running, which rather accentuates the notion of being in the zone. I did literally run in the complex of hills that make up the Palestinian city and or prison camp capital of Ramallah in the so-called West Bank. My book interleaves short and glancing running texts with longer passages through and along alleys, roads, tracks, hills, valleys, days, evenings, within and off limits, to assemble a singular portrait of the place. And I have to find a slide for this. In Ramallah, I'm running within bodily limits, the muscular fruits of midnight runs along the river in central London. Here I run from the centre to its limits, as far as I'm able. Within my limits means running for twice as long, if not twice as far, as in London. Ramallah is small, and so am I. I'm running within the limits of what I understand, of what I can see in Ramallah. I pass Abbott Said Street, which is easy, though repeatedly Mahmoud regrets its modest scale. Down past Al-Rajah, or Hope Street, which is less easy, but surely always involves the same deal. In any case, I keep running far beyond Hope Street and back again. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, the novelist points out. Whether or not you can stand anymore is up to the runner herself. Running takes me places I would not otherwise go, past the end of Rachel Corey Street, for example. It takes me along the ridge past the beginnings of Dalal Maghrabi, Nile and Nativity Streets, and out to George Habash Square, named after the least compromised leader of a liberation party. On my return, I concentrate on the writers who seem even more arbitrarily heralded in this way, streets named after Lorca and Louis Aragon, for example. I circle back to Edward Said Street, just as I did to him and his work. In Ramallah, nobody recognizes or cares about Al-Jihad Street or the tarmac of George Habash Square. The game of naming is the oldest colonial trick, paid for this time by US aid. Yet seeing the names going up intrigues me in ways that seeing traditional stone houses or refugee apartments take on a number does not. Stories of love or hate attach to names in ways that they don't to the number 21 or 118. Everyone here blames occupation and official Palestinian weakness for the council memorializing of Dalal Maghrabi Square. The same, apparently, happened with George Habash Square. Perhaps I've seen the name on a map. I stopped running at Lorca Street, halfway up a long hill where the road bends beyond sight of friendly guards outside the Chinese embassy. While Dalal Maghrabi was too controversial for a square to be named after her, the signpost I'd run past seemed overlooked or unseen. As I approach Rachel Corey Street, I think of older sisters met here who are finding ways to turn protest into substantive commitment. Near the bottom of the road named for her, a big caterpillar digger, is at work, making for complications. It's me that is running. Walking or climbing the final steep stretch home, habit etching residence in these hills. I understand better an elliptical phrase of the novelist's. Long-term projects, he wrote, involve both concentrated focus and endurance. They involve continuing to breathe while holding your breath. Impossible seeming, it might be a potent enough paradox for how Ramallah is, at least for now. Running in Ramallah was tough today. I don't know why. Usually running melts problems down, but it didn't today. Sundays are busy here. Traffic roared right to the last connected suburb along Al Tireh, which means almost to the end. In any break, the security guys zoomed about, shifting positions with puzzling urgency. Running back, construction drilling kicked up across the wadi, the valley, a noise that the nervous would ascribe to artillery. This morning I sympathize, but have spied on the only shooting I've heard here. From a rubble-strewn road below Ramallah's sewage works, an artillery range within the occupation's military base can be looked down upon. Yet there is deadliness in this drilling too. Running in Ramallah was effortsome, like everything else at the moment. Am I finding Ramallah hard and therefore the running, or is it the other way around? The days are suddenly hotter. I'm dry-throated, coughing as if ill, and truly stiffened. Last night I stepped out into the wet nudges of a cloud on my homely hill, thought to myself stupidly, it's raining too. This morning, running was physically hard. Every incline felt like 2, each slope shouted at me to stop. Every kilometre contained 1,000 metres. 2 days ago, identical conditions set me alight, drowned me in my own happy sweat, and felt like a breeze. In Ramallah, not running is tough. I'm not tired of the place, but I'm finding it hard going, feeling every small difficulty, noticing every easing off or upward struggle with skepticism. I've completed some laps now, and it's getting harder to avoid the disabling virus of NGOization, which flourishes in conditions like these. Even a best friend, who happens to be Palestinian, emails me to ask if I'm hating it here yet. The only way to be completely free of what they mean is to rely on my own physical and intellectual resources and their limits. What that means is wearying to contemplate. Running back and about to turn off Jaffa Street, a pretty tune strikes up within, unburdened with words, and then suddenly not. I found a little plot of land in the Garden of Eden. It was dirt, and dirt is all the same. I tilled it with my 2 hands, and I called it my very own. There is no one to dispute my claim. It's a song I saw performed in London by Joanna Newsom and her harp with such startling clarity that it lives in me exactly as it was received. Running against the grain has at least relaxed me. In Ramallah, I'll hold to my contrapuntal interior for now. It's me that is running. In Ramallah, running to the last, I reach my physical limits. Running concentrates a sharp pain in my left calf muscle, strained in a distant wadi 2 days ago. It's a hard run along Al Tireh, but I keep going to the end, and there it is. Running in Ramallah has bound me to the place and set me against notions of space. Place is worn, freighted, complex. Space is seductive, abstract, dust-free. I'm running in an actual place, which is how I knew that George Abbott Square exists. Many believe the sign has been removed, disallowed, banned, but here it is, no one surrendered. It's not marked on any map I own, except where I've written it myself. I half ran out here, and there it was, standing up against the settlements in the Palestinian hills. Square George Abbott, it reads, and since there's no G as such in Arabic, it's got two J sounds. It's me that is running. In Ramallah, running doesn't dissolve the pain, but heightens and hardens it. I struggled to limp most of the way back, past the guards and Lorca Street, but at least I got to pay witness. At the end of the ridge this morning, it was clear enough to see Jaffa beyond Belen and the vast white cities below. It's almost as distinct as the view from Deir Hassana in the north, on the hill where their shaheeds are honoured. Words matter everywhere. So in terms of my little provocation, I would suggest that free zoning here might decontextualize, interrupt, replace occupation with a zone of civility or indigeneity, or perhaps one of globality, policed according to international laws so that the land becomes a sanctuary for all based upon inclusiveness and not exclusiveness. My other example is much closer to home. It relates to where we are now on the edge of the regeneration zone, across the canal out to Carpenter's estate, spilling northwards and this way too, in that Lend-Lease, the developers of Westfield, Stratford City and the Athletes Village, aka East Village, are the developers at the heart of the Elephant and Castle regeneration too. The Elephant site is the last major so-called regeneration in central London and involves a so-called opportunity area of 170 acres. At its heart is not the first shopping centre in Britain, but the Haygate estate, 11 hectares or 24 acres of 1,200 units of social housing with a notoriety promoted by the local authority to enable the dispersal of its occupants across southeast England and create a tabula rasa for vast amounts of retail offices and twice as many private housing units. This site is within the CAZ, or Central Activity Zone, which is more or less Zone 1 plus, essentially, which aims to significantly increase the density of occupation and built form in coming decades. Let me give you one example of the vacuity of the term regeneration as it applies here. In the CAZ, developments in Southwark are supposed to provide affordable housing in a 70 to 30% split between target social rent and various scales of notoriously unaffordable affordability. At the Elephant, the ratio is more like 10 to 90%, 79 of the 2,500 units. Regeneration implies an ethics, surely. At the Elephant, secret deals sold the land for almost nothing, completely ignored established policies to provide 35% social housing, to maintain a car-free zone in one of Zone 1's best public transport hubs, to rehouse former residents early, and to consult with the wider community at all. It's an ongoing, unfolding scandal, so I will say no more, except to return to a notion of time. These things happen when politicians, that's deliberately upside down, and global corporations possess very short-term priorities instead of strategic, longer-term commitments. At the Elephant, politicians were obsessed with getting something, anything, into the air before the next local elections. The developer Lend-Lease's approach is symbolized faithfully, I think, by their announcing 2 months into the build that this 15-year-plus process, regeneration, will be in profit by its third year. However, where Lend-Lease's short-term lens saw only dead real estate, I deployed my special free zoning glasses and saw a forest, one composed of 450 trees right next to the Elephant, a unique and irreplaceable woodland about half the size of St. James's Park, also in Zone 1. I've been running in the zone there, running around and around the site over the last couple of years, beyond security guards and their dogs in a forcefully emptied and apparently derelict housing estate with birdsong and spray paint in the air. Running in a forest intended to make way for a new grid of roads and retail-clad podia of high-rise apartments. Running in a living forest, conscious of its rising sap. This is a very gritty way of realizing my free zoning approach, I hope you appreciate. It took a lot of effort, precious time, community solidarity, relentless pressure, and high-profile campaigning. and we got a little award for that recently, to establish significant planning precedents so that a mechanism that expresses the public welfare value of trees is embedded in the permitted master plan, which means that while many trees have been rescued, those that are destroyed will be replaced on a ratio of 5 to 1, some 1,600 new trees radiating through the elephant over the coming 6 years. It happened because I looked at 3D renderings of the early master plan agreement, and instead of its disastrous bulk, saw a single maturing London plane tree, then another, and then others, limes, sweet chestnuts, black locust, silver maples, etc. I saw the canopy they represented, their ecosystems, shade and sanctuary, as well as the ground that they guarantee access to for all. A fiercely focused, hard-edged insistence on this forest, in place of regeneration, spored a dispersed and expanded forest with various soft edges. It transformed dumb immediacy into generational time, off-plan sales and profit into real consciousness of global ecology. It remains a socially, politically, and in parts ecologically regressive development in the 21st century, and a warning to all with its privately managed park, in place of larger green areas previously actually public. But the lesson of the forest is to see this park revert to the commons before it's built, or afterwards if necessary. Which is a big statement, but let's see. So having replaced scandalous regeneration with a forest at the elephant, surely free zoning possibilities are limitless. Overlap it with a green economic zone, a wild zone, build virtuous concatenations of cycling, pedestrian and knowledge zones around the existing universities there. Intersperse these good zones with retail and rare gem zones, by all means. Even the ubiquitous and inevitable pizza zone, forgive me, in this particular building, but I think you know what I mean. But make them earn their place rather than the other way around, the civic suicide of what is now meant by regeneration. A forest has a particular economy of egalitarian relations between periphery and centre. Similarly, conceiving quasi-utopian interventions in clusters so that they fall upon an existing urban context like leaves, or even more like the shadows of trees, moving, mutable, soft-edged, and naturally accommodating of overlaps, or competition in that sense, encourages accretions of good zones, all the easier to accommodate economic drivers amongst them. These latter, I assure you, grow like weeds at any opportunity, and certainly don't need the massive and corrupt priority they receive now, even or especially under the guise of regeneration. Now, I'm going to try a little trick here. If it will play it. I'd show you what it might look like to free zone over London, but it's more potent as an idea, I think, or in the form of words for now. An image is immediate, and in this case, perhaps reductive. An idea works on a different timescale. Free zoning has all the potency of Wong Kar-wai's Dirty Utopian Minute, which lasts a lifetime in terms of the film's narrative and beyond. It's a way to run the universal, or anyway, very big global ideas and priorities through the particular, what is to hand, with tangibly present means and materials. It can really change things.